General Assembly, His Excellency, Mr. Abdulganil Nuruddin, and the Secretary General of LASS-MUN, Mr. Joseph Awubinde, Her Excellency, the Consular General of the Consulate of the Republic of Cameroon in Nigeria, Mrs. Mesem Manga, the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, being represented by Mrs. Yetunde Odejayi, the Permanent Secretary of the Office of the Deputy Governor, the Commissioner for Education, Lagos State, represented by the DG, Director General of the Office of Quality Assurance, Mrs. Abiola Seriki. Indeed, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu's themes agenda focuses on designing and implementing programs and policies that achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals in Lagos State. The world, including Lagos, is in a hurry to do away with slums, shanties, and other unsafe and vulnerable settlements, which are breeding grounds for disaster and criminality. We are excited to hear you and your policy recommendations, and also hope in your various committees that you explore and employ frameworks that take into consideration historical, geographical, cultural, economic, and political factors in developing sustainable solutions that address the negative impact of urbanizations. Finally, I want to appreciate everyone seated here. My special appreciation goes to Unique Nigeria. Thank you for the training and thank you for the opportunity given to these young ones. I, however, would remiss if I did not salute the hard work and dedication of our faculty advisors. They are 60 in number. They have invested their time and energy to prepare our delegates. I also wish to thank our amiable governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the supportive Honorable Commissioner for Education, Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo, for creating a conducive learning environment that has continued to expose our students to critical interpersonal skills needed in designing creative solutions that address today's complex global issues. I wish you a successful LASS-MUN conference. A greater Lagos is our collective responsibility. Thank you for listening.
Folashade Adefisayo at the first Lagos Secondary School Model United Nations LASS-MUN with the theme Making Cities Inclusive, Safe, Resilient, and Sustainable, held at Lagos Business School Auditorium. I must sincerely appreciate and congratulate the Tutor General and Permanent Secretary of Education District 3, Dr. Olufolayinka Ayodele, and the entire staff of the district for scoring another first in pursuance of Goal 11 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. This made in addition of the Lagos Secondary School Model United Nations in conjunction with the United Nations Information Center, Nigeria. Thank you so much for your support. By our district is in no doubt a step, a huge one at that, in fulfilling the theme's agenda of Mr. Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu. The theme, making cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable, for this occasion is putting the right peg in the right hole, especially as it embraces safety, resilience, and achieving the SDG goals in repositioning schools for effective economic value that will further positively strengthen our educational system and our collective safety as a whole. I am especially proud of the United Nations Information Center, UNIC, Nigeria, for its consistent recognition and celebration of excellence in past years and staying committed to the development and repositioning of schools, not just for effectiveness and drive for quality education, but also for continually bridging the gap of educational excellence that drives increased learning gains. The collaborative efforts of District 3 with UNIC has stressed the fact that every child indeed is important. The innovative minds behind the initiative to impart knowledge and chart a new course of grinding out quality education by creating a firm framework for Lagos schools deserves commendation. Especially for staying put to effective best practices in education in pursuit of 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. By activating to full capacity the untapped gains inherent within innovative partnerships to impact the growth of student learning and leadership. It's high time we reevaluate our priorities by taking a penetrative look at building blocks of success through innovative partnerships in education to bolster and strengthen educational foundation. The educational foundation as already being championed. Every proprietor and educational stakeholder must begin to support such repositioning efforts to bring schools into uncharted territories that would affect key areas of learning positively. I believe this unification will be the bedrock of strategic partnership that will further progressively develop our educational system and hopefully align educational gains to unlock the potentials of our students in ways like never before. I also believe that these transformational efforts will permeate the very core of the educational sector in Lagos State and in Nigeria. Thank you and God bless. Honorable Commissioner of Education, Lagos State Ministry of Education. Thank you.
I bring good tidings from Mr. Deputy Governor, Dr. Obafemi Hamzat. He sends his greetings to everyone here present, especially to Dr. Ayodele, the TGPS of District 3, to the Commissioner for Education, and to UNIC, the United Nations Information Center, for this fantastic work you are doing for our generations and generations to come. The TGPS has spoken, and the Commissioner for Education has spoken. And what I should just add is that with this program, there is hope. We have hope in our future. You know that democracy has a lot of teething problems for now. But when generations like this are raised, imagine the way the president spoke. Even the Secretary General, look at these young people. It is said that if you train a child the way it should go, when it grows up, it will not depart from it. All the problems we are having in our democracy, if we had been tutored like this from our youth, we might not be having so much problem. So, the faculty, the 60 people that train these people, thank you so much. I know that we have been collaborating with Dr. Ayodele in time past. Please, I want to implore you to go through all the districts. Please replicate this, and even in our private schools, let us build a nation that will be beautiful, that it will be nice to have seasoned people who can deliberate, who can talk at the United Nations as these people are being trained now. Thank you all for coming. I want you all to make use of this opportunity. God bless you.
Your Excellency, Mr. Abdulgani Nuruddin, the Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Ifeoluwa Joseph Awobenle, distinguished delegates, Your Excellency Deputy Commissioner of Lagos State here represented, the Commissioner for Education, Lagos State here represented, our partner in this exercise, the PSTG for Education District 3, Lagos State, Dr. Mrs. Ayodele, Excellencies, members of the diplomatic community, the LASS-MUN staff advisors whom we commend so very much, my colleagues from the United Nations, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to present the message, a special message by the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, a message that was specifically sent from New York for this model United Nations, and my assignment is to present it to you. The Secretary General of the United Nations message to the delegates of the first Lagos Secondary Schools Model United Nations held on the 10th of December 2019 in Lagos, Nigeria. Thank you for taking part in the Model United Nations and for getting involved in some of the biggest issues of our time: peace, climate action, sustainable development, and human rights. Our world has achieved remarkable progress in recent years, from increasing life expectancy to reducing child mortality. In the span of just one generation, the number of people living in extreme poverty has been reduced by more than 1 billion. But these gains face big risks. Climate change is an existential threat and the defining challenge of our time. You delegates are the first generation to grow up in the shadow of climate change and the last who can prevent its worst consequences. The world needs your strong engagement to increase ambition and to cut emissions and to hold leaders to account. The United Nations is the platform for action on climate change, on growing inequality, on harnessing new technologies for the good of all, and on all global issues that cannot be addressed by one country alone. Our blueprint is to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the globally agreed plan for dignity, peace, and prosperity on a healthy planet. To achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we need a great global mobilization that goes beyond governments, bringing people together from all walks of life and showing that international cooperation can deliver for everyone. The voices of women, girls, and indeed young people are essential. That is why Model United Nations is so important. Thank you for getting involved and for standing up for the shared values of humanity. I hope You'll take what you learn from here into your lives, to your family and friends, and to the wider world. The United Nations counts on you to be the agents of change as we strive to build a better future for all. Finally, I would like to thank the Lagos State Government, the Ministry of Education, Education District 3, our very able TGPS, Dr. Ayodele, who we've worked together with the 60 staff advisors who have trained the delegates. I'd like also to thank the delegates for the hard work. I'd like to thank my colleagues at the UN Information Center, especially Dr. Shuremekun, who has been working closely with all these students. I'd like to thank all of you for coming. Thank you.
Lagos Secondary School Model United Nations, LASS-MUN 2019. Lagos General Assembly, first session. Resolution adopted by the first session of Lagos Secondary School Model United Nations. LASS-MUN General Assembly convened at Lagos Business School, LBS, Lagos, on Tuesday, 10th of December 2019. Make city inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. The LASS-MUN General Assembly. Recalling the framework of Sustainable Development Goal SDG 11 and its targets. Recalling the first session of the United Nations Assembly convened in May 2019, following United Nations General Assembly Resolution 7/239, which dissolved the UN Habitats Governing Council as a subsidiary organ of the General Assembly and replaced it with a United Nations Habitat Assembly, aimed at strengthening the organization through its organizational structure. Recalling the message of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to the first meeting of the UN Habitat Assembly in May 2019, that 60% of the urban infrastructure needed by 2030 is yet to be built, that well-planned cities can facilitate economic growth and sustainable low-emission development, while unplanned urbanization could generate problems such as pollution, crime, inequality, disease, vulnerability of disaster, lack of affordable housing, and harmful emissions. Recalling the goal contained in the United Nations Millennium Declaration of achieving a significant improvement in the life of at least 100 million slum dwellers by 2020, and the targets contained in Goal 11 of the SDGs to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Emphasizing that sustainable urban development is essential to the planet and that governments need to formulate appropriate policies and make deliberate interventions to create an enabling environment for the delivery of land, housing, basic services, and infrastructure. Recalling that on the 22nd of December 2015, the United Nations General Assembly, on its 17th section, adopted a resolution in the implementation of the outcome of the United Nations Conference on the Human Settlement Habitat 2 and strengthening of the United Nations Human Settlements Program, UN Habitat A/70/210, which refers to the United Nations Conference on Housing and Sustainable Urban Development, Habitat 3, Conference Modalities. Further recalling the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 66/207, and in line with the bidecennial cycle 1976, 1999, and 2016, which decides to convene the Habitat 11 Conference to revigorate the global commitments to sustainable urbanization, to focus on implementation of new urban agenda, and build on the Habitat agenda in Istanbul in 1996. Acknowledging the Bamako Declaration of Action or Plan of the African Ministerial Conference on Housing and Urban Development, AMCHUD, on land on context in the Sustainability Organization, adopted in Bamako, Mali, on 26 November 2010. Recognizing the Solo Declaration and Implementation Plan of the Third Asian Pacific Modernization Conference on Housing and Urban Development, APMCHUD, on Empowering Communities and Sustainable Urbanization, adopted in Solo, Indonesia, on the 24th June 2010. Take note on the outcome of the document of the high-level plenary meeting of the 65th section of the General Assembly on the Millennium Development Goals, in particular, graph 77, that highlights the need to work beyond current targets towards cities without slums through reducing slum population and improving the lives of slum dwellers, with adequate support of the international communities, prioritizing, among other things, equal access and equal shelter. Take note on the first meeting of the United Nations Habitat Assembly in 2019 and the 5 adopt resolution on 5 strategies plan of the period 2020 to 23, as well as decision on the arrangement of the transition towards the new governance structure and ministerial declaration on innovation of better equality of life, cities and communities. Take note of the pledge of over $150 million of member citizens at the first meeting of the UN Habitat Assembly in May 2019. Through the expanding equitable access to land, housing, basic services and infrastructure that makes cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable. Call upon the government in Habitat Agenda, Pattern 2, A. Identify and propose latest ideas to approach a sustainable urban development as a contribution to United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, Rio Plus 20 in 2012, with a particular focus on 1. Green economy in context of sustainable urban development and urban poverty eradication. B. Develop strategy response to the problems of sustainable urban development, building in the recommendation of Sustainable Development Goal, SDGs.
We thank you most sincerely on behalf of the Lagos State government, especially His Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, and the Honorable Commissioner for Education, Lagos State. Special thanks to our principals for your support. We thank our staff advisors. Special thanks to our other students from the district. We hope to see you next year. And by the grace of God, we are going to have a larger house. We thank you most sincerely for your time. Thank you. God bless.